Pop star Rihanna is hot. Tickets for her concerts hotter. If you managed to score one when she performed at the Pavilion last summer, did you pay $50, $60, $70, maybe $100 or more? Well, they were tough tickets to get, but not for everyone. Turns out some people had no trouble getting tickets, and they didn't pay a dime. Our investigation has discovered Bernalillo County politicians had some of the best seats in the House free of charge. And not just for Rihanna. Over the past 2 years, they've been getting freebies for all the concerts. Everyone from Bob Dylan to Brooks and Dunn. $80,000 worth of tickets from the entertainment giant Live Nation. And not one of those politicos reported those high-priced gifts. To understand the scandal, you have to know the relationship between Live Nation and Bernalillo County. The land under the amphitheater is actually owned by the state and leased to the county. Live Nation operates the pavilion by renting it from Bernalillo County for more than $500,000 a year. 2 years ago, the county attorney and county manager cooked up a plan to sweeten the deal. Live Nation would not only rent the facility, but also hand over free tickets. The county wanted 28 reserved concert tickets, VIP club passes, and VIP parking passes. And who would get all those freebies? Well, that wasn't spelled out. This contract required state land office approval. It refused to sign it. Ray Powell is the current land commissioner. When you have a contractor who's providing free concert tickets to public officials that they're doing business with, how does that look, Ray?
I think it looks terrible. I quite frankly am bewildered, astonished, angered, frustrated that that would even be considered.
In order to get the amended lease approved, Bernalillo County had to remove the ticket language from the agreement. But that did not kill the free concert deal. Then County Manager Thaddeus Lucero found another way to do it. He slipped a provision for free concert tickets into a contract that provided county traffic control and security at concerts. As part of that deal, Live Nation gave the county 12 tickets and 5 VIP parking passes for every concert. But Live Nation didn't hand over 12 tickets, they sent 26.
It came as a complete shock to me that there were tickets above and beyond that were apparently part of a handshake deal that I was not aware of.
We have learned in the last 2 years, Live Nation quietly comped the county tens of thousands of dollars worth of concert tickets and parking passes. For every event, Commissioners Hart Stebbins, De La Cruz, Armijo, Brasher, and Wiener each got 2 tickets. Then County Manager Thaddeus Lucero got an 8-seat box and 8 additional seats. As an example, at last year's Toby Keith concert, Put it in my hand when it's said. Live Nation reserved 26 of the best seats for Bernalillo County's top officials. Since '09, Live Nation has comped county politicians with 806 concert tickets, more than enough to fill the pavilion's entire center section. By accepting free tickets, the commissioners and former manager Lucero may have violated the county's ethics code. Elected officials and employees are prohibited from accepting gifts from anybody doing business with the county. Remember, Live Nation leases the pavilion from the county. And even though gifts worth more than $250 must be disclosed, no one did. Commissioner Hart Stebbins got 62 concert tickets valued at more than $5,000. Did you go to concerts on free tickets yourself?
I did. I think out of the 10 concerts, I probably donated my tickets, probably, 5 sets of tickets to charity, a couple to my kids, and then I did go to 2 concerts last year.
Commissioner, what did you do with those tickets?
I didn't go to a single concert. I gave those tickets away.
Who got the tickets?
A wide array. Constituents, friends, family, employees, just a wide array. Frankly, I didn't consider it a gift. There was a long history of it, so walking in as a new commissioner in '09, I really didn't think to question it.
Commissioner Michael Wiener, who was out of town, also said he only attended a few concerts. So why didn't they disclose the gifts? Well, County Attorney Jeff Landers told them they didn't have to. According to a memo obtained by News 13, Landers claims, quote, the tickets that are provided to the county are received as a group that are not earmarked for any individual. Because Live Nation does not make a gift of tickets directly to a commissioner, this is not an ethics issue. Not an ethics issue? Newly elected Commissioner Michelle Lujan Grisham disagrees. She took office in January.
It's a ticket, it's a gift, it's a concert ticket. There isn't anybody who's not going to identify this as a gift. This conduct is absolutely inappropriate by any body of government, and we should not be in a position to receive anything that appears as undue influence.
Tom Zdunik is the interim county manager.
In your opinion, do you think those concert tickets should have been reported?
It appears they should have been reported.
And then there's former county manager Thaddeus Lucero, who resigned earlier this year. Our investigation found in the last 2 years, Lucero himself received almost 500 free concert tickets worth an estimated $50,000.
I gave the tickets to the departments, to the staff. I never went to any concerts, and that's what I really want everybody to understand, and I want you to understand. I never personally went to any events. I didn't go to any concerts last year. I think I haven't been to one in probably 3 or 4 years.
Lucero says he has no idea why he got concert tickets.
Why? That's a question you're going to have to ask Live Nation, but they felt, I think it was just a partnership that we had. I can't answer that question.
Well, who decided to give you 16 tickets for every concert?
That came from the PIO office when they came into the PIO office.
But county sources say Lucero knew all about the secret ticket deal with Live Nation, and those sources confirm when the Live Nation passes were delivered, they were distributed according to Lucero's direction.
I think the public perception here is that elected officials and key staff have access to a benefit, a free benefit, that the general public does not. And I think it also lends itself, unfortunately, to a perception that certain business entities have influence inside the county, and that's exactly what the public doesn't want.
Following our investigation, the county put an end to Giftgate.
I want to receive no tickets complimentary. I want to bill for services rendered and receive that compensation back to the county. And that's how I intend to operate. Pretty straight and open and honest.
Live Nation's New York PR firm did not respond to our request for comment. Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.
I can't believe that money was turned over like that. It can't be.
These transactions were not by the book, were they?
Not by our book.
There's a right way and there's a wrong way to spend taxpayer money. This project was the wrong way.
It's a government scandal involving a ton of public money and an artistic masterpiece. The project is hidden away inside the Torreon, a towering fortress on the grounds of the National Hispanic Cultural Center. This 4,000 square foot fresco mural chronicles centuries of Hispanic history and culture. Santa Fe artist Federico Vigil spent nearly a decade creating this masterpiece. The fresco painting is not controversial, but the money behind it is. Our investigation found hundreds of thousands in state tax dollars earmarked for this work of art was improperly diverted and misspent. At the heart of the wrongdoing is a former high-ranking state official and a private foundation. Legislators funded the project with appropriations totaling $812,000. Because the fresco is part of a state museum, the Department of Cultural Affairs was responsible for the money, and it's here that trouble began. Secretary Rick May runs the Department of Finance.
This could be the test case of how government is not supposed to work.
Instead of accounting for the money, former Cabinet Secretary Stuart Ashman simply gave it away. A private organization, the Hispanic Cultural Center Foundation, ended up with the entire $812,000 state appropriation.
Are there any records in the Department of Cultural Affairs showing that the money was properly expended?
No, there aren't.
Today, Secretary Veronica Gonzalez heads the Cultural Affairs Department.
Was that transfer of the $800,000 consistent with state law?
No, absolutely not. This money should have been safeguarded through the Department of Cultural Affairs oversight and accountability.
This transaction, Larry, was not by the book in any way, shape, or form. It was completely the wrong way to use taxpayers' money.
The foundation is the private fundraising arm of the state-run Hispanic Cultural Center. Once it got its hands on the $800,000 pot of money, the foundation went on a freewheeling, unauthorized spending spree. Former First Lady Clara Apodaca is the foundation's president. Ms. Apodaca insisted on being interviewed in the Torreon.
In your opinion, has the money been properly expended?
Yes, I believe it has.
However, nobody in state government seemed to notice. The foundation was quietly siphoning off the Fresco money and pouring thousands of state dollars into the private foundation's own coffers. For example, the foundation helped itself to $162,000 and called it administrative fees.
What did that money go for?
Well, it went for the expenses that we had on the for the Fresco.
Like what?
Well, we had, we did a lot of lobbying, we did a lot of traveling, but, I'm not sure it was all used for that because we actually also paid for a lot of programs.
That money isn't for the foundation for its programs. That money was a capital appropriation for the Fresco.
Well, and we thought under the contract we could use that.
$162,500 for fees. Is that a proper expenditure of a capital appropriation?
Absolutely not.
The foundation claimed half of the appropriation, $432,000, was used to compensate the artist, but that was a deception. Our investigation finds Frederico Vigil only got $200,000 from the state funds. The other $200,000 had already been paid to the artist, well before the legislature even appropriated the money. Instead of spending the state funds on the Fresco project, the foundation simply pocketed some $200,000 in taxpayer money. And then there's the $9,000 the foundation claimed it paid for this DVD produced for the Fresco's grand opening, and another $70,000 the foundation shelled out for a 1-hour documentary.
Where is that documentary today?
We haven't finished it. We have a script, and then we have a lot of tapes, but that has not been completed.
Today there is no 1-hour documentary.
No, there isn't.
The $800,000 appropriation was earmarked for this painting, not DVDs, documentaries, bogus compensation, or fees. Add it all up, and the foundation's financial misdeeds equals almost $500,000. Now, Stuart Ashman had no authority to transfer the funds outside state government. He did it anyway. Clara Apodaca claims the arrangement was legitimate.
We had a signed contract, and that signed contract spelled it out what we could spend it on. So that's what we did.
However, our investigation found the so-called contract was a sham. The 2-page undated document appears to have been written before the legislature even authorized the appropriation.
Your understanding is that a legal document that provides safeguards to taxpayers?
Absolutely not, no.
Last year, questions were raised about the foundation's use of state money. Cultural Affairs launched a review. And except for a few discrepancies, the state agency said the foundation was in compliance with all laws and regulations. Was that review shoddy, or was it a cover-up? We don't know.
They were following directives, but they made mistakes also. And they have to be held accountable for that.
Once they went down that path of giving the money directly to the foundation, then we lost all financial control. We lost all of the ability to ensure that the taxpayer money was being spent properly. The one person that had the responsibility to ensure that taxpayers' money was spent wisely in this case was the previous cabinet secretary for the Department of Cultural Affairs.
Stuart Ashman?
Larry, you said the name, I didn't, but the record is pretty clear.
Reached by phone, former Cultural Affairs Secretary Stuart Ashman said everything he did was proper. Beyond that, Ashman said he had no comment.
Senator, if it turns out that some of that money actually was diverted to other uses or was misspent,
Well,
what do you do about it, Senator?
Somebody needs to be tried and go to jail. I mean, that's not right.
We appropriated the money to the Department of Cultural Affairs. They spent that money and there are no receipts for it. To me, it borders on criminal.
Independent auditors are now investigating the Fresco fiasco.
Any funds that the state identifies as being inappropriate,
Right,
will the foundation return every penny?
absolutely. But we'll have to raise it.
You don't have the money.
No.
Well, the governor's directions to both Secretary Gonzalez and myself were very, very simple. Get to the bottom of this, If taxpayers' money was improperly spent, get it back, and don't let it happen on our watch.
Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.
We don't quit. We don't sleep.
They call it The Burrowers, a science fiction drama filmed in New Mexico. Look familiar? Well, probably not. You see, this creepy thriller wasn't exactly a box office hit.
That's because it never made it to the box office. You see, The Burrowers was a dud that went straight to DVD. But here's a piece of movie trivia. The entire $7 million Hollywood production was made possible by New Mexico taxpayers.
In fact, over the course of a decade, some $239 million in public money has been plowed into Hollywood movie productions.
New Mexico's film investment program was authorized by the legislature. It allows the State Investment Council to make interest-free loans to movie studios that produce their films in New Mexico. For Hollywood, it's free use of millions of dollars in public money.
For New Mexico, it's an opportunity to generate film jobs and economic growth by encouraging in-state movie production. The other objective, simply put, to make a profit. Public money can be invested in movie productions if they offer the potential for generating returns to taxpayers. Steve Moise was hired as the state investment officer last year.
Our primary charge is to earn an appropriate return by investing the permanent funds of the state without taking undue risk.
Isn't an investment in a film production pretty risky?
There is a considerable amount of risk in film investment, yes.
For example, in 2006, state officials poured $15 million into a feature-length comedy called Swing Vote, starring Kevin Costner. Hundreds of locals were hired as crew for scenes in Albuquerque and Belen. But Swing Vote was a box office flop. There were no profits. And although the $15 million was paid back, taxpayers suffered a $1.6 million loss from the no-interest loan. It's not just Swing Vote. Practically all of the film investments have soured. Even though all the loans were paid back, New Mexico's bank account has been drained of millions through lost interest.
Remember, New Mexico's film investments are limited to only those projects that have a, quote, reasonable probability of turning a profit. State investment officials may know a lot about stocks and bonds and next to nothing about the make-believe world of Hollywood. Movie deals are tricky, so the Investment Council hired an expert.
Meet film investment advisor Peter Deckham.
Can you all hear me? Is this on?
A Hollywood insider, a top-dollar movie industry lawyer with connections. The Investment Council paid Deckham handsomely to review movie loan applications and make investment recommendations. For example, Deckham endorsed a $3.8 million interest-free loan to a comedy Western horror flick called Undead or Alive. But it was a box office bust. And so was the low-budget horror film Cruel World that had free use of $1.7 million. And it was Deckham who thought a $15 million investment in the movie Elvis Has Left the Building might just pay off for taxpayers. Elvis not only left the building, it left taxpayers in the lurch.
Out of the 24 film productions that the state invested in, how many of those actually provided a return to the state in profit?
One.
Is that a great return?
It is not.
Although an objective of the loan program was to make money, in the end, only the film advisor cleaned up. Peter Deckham's been paid more than $2 million to give advice. On the other hand, taxpayers lost almost $30 million from no-interest loans made to losing film deals. Now, when it comes to Hollywood movie making, everyone's an expert, and no one is.
Is there such thing as a Hollywood insider who really can look at a project and predict it's going to make a ton of money?
Unless they're a psychic with really good connections, I don't think so.
Professor Sherry Burr teaches entertainment law at UNM's law school.
The problem is people who are not intimately connected to the industry make a mistake because they get thrilled about the idea of investing in films and they don't understand how the accounting works.
Hollywood insiders will tell you if you want to make money on a motion picture, you need to get a percentage of the box office receipts right off the top. But New Mexico's deals were different. In the state's case, taxpayers would cash in only if the film turned a profit. And in Hollywood, profit is like this western town. It's an illusion.
When you look at Titanic, which made $1.8 billion, cost $200 million to make, it also lost money according to studio accounting figures.
I told you to let me pass on.
In New Mexico, even Seraphin Falls co-stars Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson could not return a profit for the state's $15 million investment. Instead of being a bonanza, Seraphin Falls was a bust.
It's just the way Hollywood plays the game. You have to understand the accounting system if you're going to play with the Hollywood folks. All films lose money according to Hollywood.
If it were up to you and you had complete control over this, would you invest $239 million in film productions?
I doubt that the council would have invested $239 million in film loans.
Moise says New Mexico cannot afford to play the game any longer. For starters, the Investment Council now has new membership. And one of their first orders of business, they fired Peter Deckham. And while the state can still make movie loans, the investments will no longer be interest-free. So far, there have been no takers. Larry Barker, KRQE News 13. Ask this politician a question, and you'll likely get an answer. But there's one thing she won't talk about.
With all due respect, I do not wish to speak to you.
State Representative Cheryl Williams Stapleton, the House Majority Whip, is a veteran legislator with a big secret. Our investigation finds Stapleton one of only a handful of state lawmakers who collect salaries while performing elected duties. This despite the fact the Constitution prohibits legislators from pocketing salaries.
New Mexico is the only state in the country that does not pay legislators a salary. Instead of having professional career politicians run the government, New Mexico has what's called a citizens legislature. Its members are unpaid, and their only compensation is per diem to reimburse for food, lodging, and mileage.
Professor Tim Krebs teaches political science at UNM.
In a citizens legislature, what you're going to get is a cross-section of the community serving in the legislature.
For example, Tim Jennings' unpaid job is president pro tem of the state Senate. But Jennings makes his living as a Roswell rancher.
Because we come up here, we don't come up here to stay. We're not looking for a livelihood. We're just looking to come up and do the people's work and go home.
In private life, State Rep Terry McMillan is a medical doctor. When he makes rounds at the Roundhouse, no one tends to his patients in Las Cruces.
It's a significant financial hardship. My practice is one that has to be actually completely shuttered when I'm here for sessions.
And when Pipeline Inspector Bob Woolley is reviewing legislation in Santa Fe, his oil field paychecks are on hold.
It's a hardship. We have to dip into our savings in order to pay our bills. My wife's a school teacher, and she's been there quite a while, so she makes decent money, but we have to dip into savings to meet our obligations.
But not all of New Mexico's 112 lawmakers make a financial sacrifice for their public service. Our investigation finds a few members pocketing hefty taxpayer salaries during legislative sessions.
For example, taxpayers pay State Senator Pete Campos a salary of $411 every day he's at the Capitol. Now, the money doesn't come from the legislature. It comes from Luna Community College in Las Vegas. You see, the senator is Luna's president. His employment contract allows the senator to collect his salary even when he's off campus on legislative business. Because Luna is a public university, the money paid to the senator comes from taxpayers.
My duties run 7/24/365. I deal with my issues, whether I'm here, whether I'm in Las Vegas. The intent is to ensure that I'm responsible, taking care of my duties back home, and at the same time taking care of the duties and my responsibilities as a member of the state Senate.
Senator Cynthia Nava earned $140,000 a year as the Gadsden School Superintendent. When she took off for weeks at a time to work in the Senate, Nava continued to collect her full school salary. Earlier this year, she resigned from the Gadsden schools. Senator Gay Kernan, Representatives Dennis Roach, Tomas Garcia, and James Smith all work for public schools in their respective districts. However, when these lawmakers are here, their public service is without their school salary. District policies require Kernan, Roach, Garcia, and Smith to take unpaid leave when they work at the Capitol.
At Albuquerque Public Schools, a Teachers Federation contract allows classroom instructors who are elected to the legislature to collect their school salaries even during legislative sessions. That means APS foots the bill for teachers when they legislate in Santa Fe.
So when lawmakers Bernadette Sanchez and Tim Lewis make the annual trek north, their APS paychecks continue as if they were still in the classroom. And then there's State Rep Cheryl Stapleton. As an APS administrator, she supervises vocational programs at the schools. But she's not always here. In fact, she's not here a lot. According to APS policy, when Stapleton takes off for Santa Fe, she cannot collect her APS salary. Political leave for administrators is unpaid.
But that didn't stop Representative Stapleton from cheating the system. Our investigation found Stapleton has been quietly bilking taxpayers out of tens of thousands of dollars for years.
Instead of taking unpaid leave to work in the legislature, Stapleton simply took off and disappeared. No leave, no approvals, not even a goodbye. Since 2005, she did this more than 600 times. Her APS supervisor looked the other way. The school's payroll department could not have known Stapleton was playing hooky while politicking in Santa Fe. Over the last 7 years, her unauthorized leave from APS cost taxpayers $167,000.
Was she allowed by policy to get paid while she served in the legislature?
Not by the way the current employee handbook is written, no.
But in fact, she was paid.
In fact, she was paid.
Did she put in for leave?
To my knowledge, no.
And she wasn't AWOL just during legislative sessions. Stapleton frequently ducked out of APS to take part in legislative meetings and conferences held when lawmakers were not in session. And when she routinely jetted off to Dallas, New Orleans, Nashville, Washington, Boston, even Puerto Rico, she did so at APS expense. Stapleton's interim legislative jaunts cost taxpayers $75,000.
Stapleton not only pocketed her school district salary while working here, she also hit up taxpayers an additional $117,000 to cover her legislative expenses.
How does she explain all this? Well, she doesn't. Stapleton would not respond to phone calls or email for comment. We caught up with her. Where else? At the Capitol.
I believe you have spoken to my supervisors. I do not wish to speak to you.
But you've been lying on your timesheets.
I haven't lied on any timesheet.
APS admits Stapleton has been abusing the system for years. However, she won't face discipline nor be required to make restitution. After our investigation, Superintendent Brooks changed APS policy to be consistent with the teacher's contract. Now, when Cheryl Stapleton takes off for Santa Fe, she does so legitimately at APS expense. I gotta ask you, if any employee of APS walked off their job for whatever reason and didn't put in leave for it, that's gotta bother you.
Oh, it'd bother me, and I'd probably seek disciplinary action if it were just any employee. These folks are not just walking off the job and disappearing. They're walking off the job. Granted, they may not have followed the rules, which will now be changed, but they walked off the job to go serve in the legislature.
Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.